MOZA Racing launched the R9 wheelbase a little while ago now, and it's been the company's best-selling wheelbase. Being a small form factor direct drive wheelbase that is well priced has really helped this sim racing wheel stand out from the crowd. Now, MOZA has released the MOZA R12 wheelbase, which serves as an upgrade over the older R9. But does it go far enough to replace the R9 as the best small direct drive wheel of 2023? Well, in this comparison video, I'm going to put both the R9 and R12 head to head across a range of categories to really see which wheelbase you should be considering buying. Now, first off, I want to give a little overview of both the R9 and the R12. And as you can see from these shots, they both look pretty similar. However, there is a difference in the price and the headline performance figure, with the R12 pushing 12 Nm of peak torque, while the R9 is limited to just 9 Nm. There's also the price difference, which is around €100 or just under $100 difference between the R9 and the R12, and I'll talk about this price a little bit later on in this video. Now, the MOZA R9 wheelbase was released as an attempt to capture some of the sim racing market from the powerhouse Fanatec. Fanatec's CSL DD and GT DD Pro really revolutionised sim racing by lowering the cost of entry for higher performing direct drive wheelbases. MOZA created the R9 as an answer to both of these in an attempt to improve on them with a slightly higher performance figure. Both of Fanatec's wheelbases were limited to 8 Nm of peak torque, even with the additional boost kit. Now, MOZA went one better than this with the R9 by ensuring it surpasses both the CSL DD and GT DD Pro in the performance category, with the R9 capable of a peak torque of up to 9 Nm. While the MOZA R9 performs incredibly well and quickly became one of the most popular sim racing wheels around, one of the main criticisms that it faced, which was also directed at Fanatec's smaller wheelbases, was that 8 or 9 Nm of peak torque was really just underneath the ideal amount. That was certainly my opinion as well, with my performance preference being around that 12 to 14 Nm of peak torque. I find that the ideal range. But really, if you want to achieve this, these small direct drive bases, they don't quite hit that number and they feel a little bit underpowered. You really have to step up to kind of the more premium, bigger direct drive bases that are capable of sort of 18, 20 Nm of torque, and then you have to detune them a little bit. Well, enter the MOZA R12. The R12 wheelbase takes the R9 as a base and increases its performance fairly significantly to 12 Nm of peak torque, which is kind of right in that sweet spot. There are also other improvements to the R12, which include the incredibly immersive vibration and rumble effects that the motor can produce. It also expands the compatibility to now include all of MOZA's current lineup of products, something that the R9 currently can't say it does. Now, you'll see straight away when I put these wheelbases head to head that they look pretty identical. Yeah, there are some small differences throughout, such as the small R12 logo on the R12 wheelbase, just to remind you have the more powerful version. But both wheelbases really follow the exact same design philosophy. The R12 is ever so slightly longer, but has a shorter and skinnier drive shaft. And ultimately, both wheelbases look almost identical. So if you're kind of considering both of them, this really should not be a differentiating factor. And I'm going to put this category down as a draw. Now, the performance of both these wheelbases, on the other hand, is a much bigger topic, and it really is the main point of difference between the MOZA R9 and the R12. As I mentioned earlier, the R9 creates a peak torque of 9 Nm, while the R12 increases this output to a peak of 12 Nm. That's a 3 Nm increase in performance, or around 33%. Now, a 33% increase in performance is pretty significant, and this improvement is immediately evident when comparing the wheels back to back. While the MOZA R9 performs incredibly well, the R12 adds another dimension to the force feedback. The strength increase is immediately noticeable and is a welcome addition, putting the R12 into that real sweet spot of force feedback performance. But the real standout feature is the way that the MOZA R12 handles vibrations and rumbles. When driving over a curb or pushing your car beyond the limits and starting to understeer with the R9, you'll notice a small vibration, but it's only very minor in comparison to the overall force feedback. When you do either of these things on the MOZA R12, there is an extra layer of rumbling which is sent throughout your sim rig. You can really feel the rumbling in your arms, through to your seat and your pedals, and is really quite immersive. Now, the vibration that the R12 produces is not a bad vibration at all. It doesn't feel like it's going to shake your sim rig to pieces. Instead, it's a subtle, low frequency rumbling that almost feels like a butt kicker is mounted to your sim rig. The force feedback that the MOZA R12 produces is incredible and really elevates the overall performance, making this an easy win for the R12 in this category. And continuing on from that little win, the compatibility is another area where MOZA have really made improvements with the R12. Around a year or so ago, MOZA slightly tweaked their quick release technology. The changes brought in an extra set of contact points on the quick release itself. These extra contact points allowed extra compatibility for the MOZA R5 wheelbase in that generation. Since the launch of the R5, all steering wheels, including the new KS steering wheel which I recently reviewed, use these extra contact points. This means that some newer MOZA steering wheels won't be compatible with the R9 wheelbase. Now, the good news if you don't own either of these bases yet, is that the R12 does include this update, meaning it's compatible with all current MOZA steering wheels. And talking about compatibility, there are also a few improvements at the rear of the wheelbase as well. There are additional connection ports allowing you to connect peripherals such as your pedals, your handbrake, and your shifter directly to the R12 wheelbase. This really tidies up cables and reduces the amount of cables going into your PC. With the R9, you couldn't connect these to your wheelbase. Instead, you had to either connect each peripheral directly to your PC via USB or to the universal hub, which is just another thing that you have to get. Whereas with the R12, everything connects directly into the back of the wheelbase, and then one single USB cable goes from your wheelbase to your PC. These overall improvements make the R12 an easy winner of the compatibility category, with much better compatibility than the R9 in all areas really. So that leads me on to having to decide which wheelbase is a better buy in 2023. As you've noticed at pretty much all points during this comparison, the newer MOZA R12 has beaten the R9 in pretty much every category. The only real consideration that may prevent someone from choosing the R12 over the R9 is the price. The newer R12 costs approximately €100 or just under $100 more than the R9. And that isn't exactly a small amount of money to find. However, when you do consider all of the improvements, I would certainly say it's worth it. You get extra compatibility, future-proofing with newer MOZA steering wheels, and the performance increase is pretty staggering. Overall, I'd have to recommend the MOZA R12 over the R9 in almost every scenario. The only reason I would say to give the R12 a miss is if you already own an R9. Unless you can sell your MOZA R9 for close to its full value, it probably isn't worth rebuying the R12 just for these updates. I can, however, really see the R12 becoming the best-selling MOZA wheelbase in the coming months and years. It really covers that sweet spot of force feedback that often gets missed by other sim racing brands,